The 2026-27 NBA schedule release rolls on today as we inch closer to having all 82 games in our hands by this time tomorrow. The Knicks are still basking in the orange and blue glow of becoming the first team to win both the NBA Cup and the NBA Championship, and they look to double up in 26-27. New York will be in the East Group B. This thing is a gauntlet, and they begin their cup defense against the Sixers on October 30th. All right, that'll see two teams playing 10 times the first 10 days. We got the Pacers as well. Teams that met in the playoffs in 24-25. Then the Cavs in a rematch of the 26 Eastern Conference Finals. Cleveland swept by the Knicks on their way to winning their first championship in 53 years. And the day after Thanksgiving, the Knicks will host the Heat as Miami boasts the newest star front court duo in the conference with Giannis and Bam. The two teams will split their season series. They split their season series last year, winning all their games at home. East Group B enters the year on paper as that toughest group I mentioned in the NBA Cup group this year. 5 of the 8 teams with the shortest odds to win the Eastern Conference are in Group B, including the 2 teams with the best odds, the Knicks and the Sixers. All right, we welcome in Kendrick Perkins. The Knicks are going to have their hands full if they're going to go back-to-back in the NBA Cup, let alone in the NBA Finals. What do you see as the biggest challenge for the Knicks as they try to be the first team to repeat in 9 seasons?
Well, it's going to come down to the sacrifice and the togetherness. That's going to be the biggest thing. I remember in 2008 when we won it the year afterwards, after you were getting all your flowers throughout the course of the summer and the off season, and everyone is telling you how important and you was the key and you was the factor. You walk into training camp with that mindset. And the hardest thing about repeating is having to have everyone all in again and lose themselves in the team. Because, certain guys may come in and they may want to play for a contract. Other guys are coming in and they may have an agenda of, trying to accomplish an individual goal. So the biggest thing is making sure that everyone stays in the mindset of losing themselves in the team and staying together and sacrificing. That's the hardest part. I remember when we won it a year later, Danny Ainge was like, "Hey, Perk, we want to offer you a contract extension," but the numbers were the same. And I said no. Next thing I know, I was traded up out of that Oklahoma City. So it's part of it. It's part of it, but that's the hardest part. And that's why one of the reasons we haven't seen a team repeat in the last 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, Perk, that's a great point you mentioned, because on top of that, you didn't have to contend with a second apron like these teams do now, and that is hovering over the Knicks with the owner who says he does not want to get into that second apron, and a Karl Anthony Towns contract that is hovering over this season. Karl Anthony Towns, somebody who has been under as much scrutiny as anybody in New York. They were talking about when they were down 2-1 against the Hawks, getting rid of this dude. They were talking about getting rid of him at the trade deadline. Of course, he redeemed himself and was a pivotal part of this finals, but he is going to have to step up even more. That Mitchell Robinson, losing him is not something to sneeze at. He was important to be a second big man. The things he did defensively, the offensive rebounds, Karl Anthony Towns is going to have to pick that up while also looking at ownership and saying, when am I going to get my money? That stuff impacts these teams, as you mentioned, Perk, coming off of a championship.
Yeah, and DDJ, I'm totally with you on. Oh, go, Perk, yeah.
No, I was just going to piggyback just real quick, Dave, and he's right. Like, we lost James Posey to Indiana after that. And here's the real thing. Karl Anthony Towns, he needs to take less in order for them to re-sign and give Jalen Brunson a contract extension. So without Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns situated, locked in, then obviously, you don't want that turmoil. You don't want that type of, energy creeping in when you're trying to reap.
Yeah, I just think back to the Mitchell Robinson point that David made. Listen, you look at their roster, they didn't improve. It's not like they brought in more talent. Right. And they are now squarely going to have the bullseye on their back every game that they play on the schedule. Every market they go into, they're going to be marketing those tickets for their home fans to come see us play the champs and try to beat the champs. That's an extra pressure, and a lot of times you'll see a team. I covered the Lakers in 2009, 2010. They made the Trevor Ariza Meta World Peace swap in order to bring in more talent to try to contend with that extra emphasis, that extra motivation that they're going to feel from their opponents to try to take them down. The Knicks haven't done that this offseason. That's a little concerning.
Well, and to your point, Dave, usually what ends up happening is, like in that example you utilized, right? Someone who hasn't won a championship too, right? That adds to that layer of motivation. So it will be interesting to see how it shakes out, because the East, I mean, there's going to be a couple teams in the East that don't even make the, or at least one that doesn't make the play-in that could be a potential playoff caliber type team. So let's check in on some of the West NBA Cup matchups now with a little coast to coast. Let's get started with Group A. Here are the dates for the matchups between the Nuggets, Rockets, Suns, Mavs, and Utah. So, David Dennis, what team intrigues you the most from this pod?
All right, so this pod, so I'm looking at Utah is actually kind of interesting to me as a team here in the West. Dallas is there as well, but like I think about Utah as a team that is now coming into a situation where they're not tanking anymore. For the first time, they're actually trying to win some games. But then, of course, look at Dallas and what they have. You have Cooper Flag. What is he going to look like in year 2? What's it going to look like with Kyrie Irving supposedly being there? They're the interesting team as well.
All right, Group B is made up of the Thunder, Wolves, Clippers, Pelicans, and the Grizzlies. Dave, what team will you be watching out of these 5?
I got to see the Wolves. I need to see how that backcourt looks together with LaMelo Ball and Anthony Edwards. Obviously, they came into the league, the same draft class, the #1 pick, the #3 pick. LaMelo's had his own team the last several years. How will he acquiesce to Edwards, or how will Edwards kind of open the door to make things comfortable for LaMelo? And also, this team, I know the Wolves made it to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. They look vastly different than those teams that made the conference.
I'd like to see what their front court looks like, because they've traded it all the way. All right, plenty of star power in Group C. Wemby, Luka, Dame, Steph, and don't forget the Kings. So I'll ask both of you quickly. Dave McMenamin, we'll start with you. Is there any team you think that can stop the Spurs from advancing here again?
Only the Spurs. Oh, Spurs are the only team that can stop the Spurs.
Yeah, we talk about the Wolves. I don't know what their front court's going to look like. We know what the Spurs front court's going to look like. It is Wemby. This dude is on a mission, as we know. I think he's on a mission to get MVP this year and avenge what happened in the finals. And as we know, this dude takes everything seriously. All-star games, mid-season tournaments, everything. He's not skipping steps. This is going to go through Wemby.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you guys wholeheartedly. All right, well, in case you missed it, the knockout stages change for the NBA Cup starting this year, with the quarter and semifinals both being hosted by the team with the higher seed. The championship game will be at Hinkle Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, the home of Butler University, on December 11th. All right, coming up, speaking of Indy, what if we told you this Fever offense is doing something almost unheard of? We'll explain in just a moment. And the loaded NBA Cup group that surprised our panel, and Perk says one team that can send a message more than the rest. And listen, Mac McClung, he's still out there doing his thing. He hasn't run out of ways to wow us, so make sure you keep it locked to see what Mac can do next. The return of the Mac continues.